My name is Megan Sweary. I work for the Papa John Center here at Iowa State University. We offer programming and workshops and helps to students as well as community members who are interested in starting a business. And this is the second to last of our Start Something series. So today we're going to talk about sales, pricing, and where to sell. And then next week for our last session, we have a panel of entrepreneurs who are going to come and talk about what they wish they knew before they started. So it should be an engaging conversation. A few things for you. Please stay muted throughout today's session. Again, just for recording purposes. If you have questions, use the chat. And if you can, just keep your cameras off so that we can keep bandwidth at its highest and make sure we don't have any glitches as we go through today. After today's session, we will send you the recordings of this as well as the slide deck and like a Cliff Notes version of everything we talk about. So you'll notice the slides have a lot of words on them. Don't feel like you have to write everything down. We'll send them out as a resource after today's session. So with that, we're going to jump right in to pricing, sales, and where to sell. Today we have Ashley Gassmann with us, who owns multiple companies, has wonderful experience, and so much to share with us. So Ashley, can you first start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey?
Yes, for sure. So my name is Ashley Gassmann, and I'm the founder of LON Events, Mariglow Neon, and Goldie Gift Co. I graduated from ISU in 2019, and I studied marketing, event management, and got a minor in entrepreneurship, which were all great experiences, and I'm using them all in my businesses today still. When I was at Iowa State, I participated in a lot of entrepreneurship opportunities that they offered, including size starters, pitch competitions, did at least 10, I don't even know, I lost track, so many pitch competitions. OEI, I did that one summer. And I also co-founded Cardinal Eats, which was a food publication at Iowa State. And I think it's still going to this day, which is pretty awesome. That was also a great experience for entrepreneurship. And after graduation, I went right to creating LON Events, and the other businesses followed. So
that's awesome. So speaking of, can you kind of talk about the evolution where you started and kind of how the other businesses spun out of the original and kind of how that all happened?
For sure. So LON Events started as a way to start raising money for my original business idea, which was what I was working on in Size Starters, which was an event design platform so you could design your tablescapes. But I needed to raise money for that to be able to hire a developer to make that. So I started LON Events as a way to do that because I had the skills needed to do wedding planning. I should say that it's a wedding planning, design, and decor rental business. So I started that right away just because I knew it was something that I could do and I had the skills needed. And then Mariglow Neon came about a year and a half later, when in the industry I saw a trend for LED neon signs. So that's when I started Mariglow Neon, which is an LED custom and rental neon sign business. So that was pretty cool because from the experience I was getting in LON, I saw the opportunity just to create another company, and with having an entrepreneurial mindset, the Goldie Gift Co. came through. So that is my business that I sell on Etsy, and there's stickers for mainly weddings and events. And I started that because through my parents' business, they sell industrial label printers, and I had the opportunity to use one of their printers to start making these labels. So that's kind of my journey so far. And now I'm actually starting to develop my design platform, which is cool. So kind of full circle.
That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have a service business, a product business, you have more of a passive income business on Etsy. So lots of different experiences that we get to pick your brain about today. So thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. And I apologize about my voice. Getting over sickness right now.
You are so good. Thanks for being here despite that. Okay, so let's start with pricing. So I have a business idea. I've like done all the processes that we've talked about in previous sessions. It's legitimate. I'm ready to start selling. How do I figure out how to price my stuff?
So for a product-based business, I would say first look at all the costs that are going into whatever you are selling. That includes things of actually like making the product or sourcing the product, how much that costs you, the cost to ship the product to your customer, if it is an online business, if you're shipping it, and going into the shipping, make sure you include all of like the packaging, things that go into the branding for your packaging, like stickers, paper that you put inside, the material, things like that. And then also look at what your customers, what they're willing to pay. So make sure you do your research to other businesses and see kind of where you want to price your product, because that kind of determines the type of customer you're getting, if that makes sense.
Yeah, can you expand on that a little bit? Like this idea that price portrays value?
Yeah, for sure. So, for example, for going into more of the service base for my LON events, I first started pricing really, really low to just try to get my first client for wedding planning. And from that, you start to get customers. You could potentially, I should say, get customers with like lower wedding budgets because your price is lower. And just want to keep everything as low as possible, which is perfectly okay. But if that's not the type of customer that you are wanting to attract, then you need to start looking at what price should you price your service to get the customer that you want. And same thing for like product-based business. So like my Mariglow Neon, make sure you price so then you're still making a profit, but maybe you want to be on like the lower end to attract more of the customers that maybe get more volume rather than having a higher price and lower volume.
Yeah, I think it's really common for people to price like very low originally, trying to attract customers, like similar to your story. Do you regret doing it that way? Or what were things like from that process? Did it then become a challenge to raise your prices? Can you kind of talk through that part?
Yeah, for sure. So my situation was kind of unique because I started pricing low. That was in 2019. And then in 2020, COVID happened. So then with the service-based, you lock in your price with the contract, and then you had to honor that price when their wedding was 2 years later. I still have weddings happening this summer from 2019. So that's a little bit of a challenge. I wouldn't say that I regret it, but I am glad that I recognized that my time was worth more than what I was charging before. And I increased it. And I actually increased my price for my planning packages. I think I ended up increasing it 3 different times. So from experience, I think it's okay to start low just to like get that experience with your own company. But then as you get more experience, and then you want to price yourself higher because you've learned that your time is priced more than what you were charging.
Yeah. Do you feel like products are easier to price or services?
That's a good question because it's a little different because the products is more based on what it costs for you to like make it and the expenses that go into it. But then services is more like priced on your experience. So I think pricing products is easier just because there's numbers that you can like back it up behind, but service, it's more like experience. So you kind of learn as you go.
Yeah, it's a bit more subjective when you're doing services. Do
Yeah.
you still factor in your time when you price products though as well?
Yes, for sure. You want to always factor in your time. I would say that for service based though, you factor in your time a little more.
So how did you figure out like how much time to factor into pricing for your products or your services? Like, did you get it right the first time, or did you have to kind of like time yourself a few different times and then find the average?
Yeah, so for service, I think that was more straightforward because for planning, you can like you figure out how much time it takes to like design the design guide that you're sending to your customer, and then the actual hours that you're there, like the day of. So I think that that's easier. And then also looking at what competitors are charging for their pricing as well. I've moved quite a few times the past 3 years. So pricing also determines on like the location that you're in. Right now I'm in Kansas City, so the prices that you can charge are a little higher than what it would be like in Iowa for service. But then for products, for your time, that's just kind of more, I would say, the time it takes to like package things up, the time it takes to do all the marketing work, the computer work, things like that.
So how do you factor like overhead time? Like we talk about overhead expenses, right? But like marketing wouldn't necessarily be just for one sale, or like the design process of one of your stickers. How do you kind of factor that in if you're going to make multiple sales on that 1 hour of time that you spent or whatever it is?
Yeah, that's pretty hard. So I'd say like for product, the time is a little less of a factor, just because like the majority of what you're charging for your product is the other expenses that go into it. And then so how I kind of do it, which I don't know is the exactly right way, is first look at the cost of the product and then look at what competitors are charging for the product. And then with that, you can kind of see how much your time would be worth, I guess, kind of like factor that in.
So when you look at competitors, because I think that's a great strategy, do you try and like be below your competitors at the same price, above them because you're a higher quality product? How do you kind of handle that?
So it's different for all of my companies. For L1 events, I would say I'm more at the higher end because I'm trying to attract clients that are with bigger budgets, things like that. For Mariglow, my strategy at the start was to be a lower priced than my competitors, just because I could source my product for a lower price, and I'm the only, besides my manufacturer and my web developer, I'm the only full-time employee. So that makes it a little easier because I don't have other employees to factor in for the cost of the product. So for Mariglow, my product based, it is, I try to do more of the lower end because I also saw that competitors, they were charging like a lot for the signs. And I was trying to have an option that could fit a more broader market.
Yeah, so you really base it off of your ideal customer and what you're hoping to portray. I think
For
that's a really important point. So I'm glad that we talked about that. We had a question in chat. How often do you recommend reevaluating prices? Quarterly, monthly, annually, or is it not on such a set schedule?
So for me, I kind of analyze it about twice a year, I would say. And recently I've been analyzing it a little more. And I say that because shipping costs have been going up like crazy. So in order to accommodate that, I've had to increase my prices for Mariglow. I've increased twice, I would say. So just little increases because what was happening it was that I couldn't do my promos anymore because the shipping costs went up so much. So I couldn't offer discounts, which I love doing. I think that's a great marketing tool for product-based businesses. And I was finding that I couldn't offer like the 10% off discount because the shipping costs went up 10%. So then my margins, I couldn't get that achieved. So
Yeah, that's a great point, and it goes right into the next thing that I was hoping we could talk about is pricing with some of these other things in mind. So if you do want to offer free shipping, or you do want to offer certain deals at different times of the year, how do you make sure that your prices are where they should be so you still have some flexibility to do that?
Yeah, so I would say that you just want to make sure that you're like looking at the big picture, like how much is my product costing? How much is, especially the shipping, how much is the shipping? And then you can determine how much of a discount you can offer based on those numbers. And I like to do, for discounts, I usually do 10%, and then sometimes 15%, but it depends on the product you're offering and how big those margins are. With mine, 10% I would say is very doable, but it depends on what your product is. You could offer, some people can do 25%, but it just depends. And you want to make sure you're still making a profit, obviously.
Yeah.
With the
So
discount.
when you noticed it was time to like adjust your prices, it was because you started to notice your margins were being smaller? Is that kind of what? Okay.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because the shipping just, it was killing us on the price. So
then you must track everything so that you're aware of what your margin, like, do you know your margins of like every sale that goes out?
for the most part, yes, I do. For Mariglow, I use Shopify, which has a lot of good analytic tools. And then for Mariglow, or for L1 events, sorry, I use Squarespace, which they both have their, I think we're going to talk about this in a little bit too, but I won't go too much into it, but they both have their positives and negatives. I would say that Shopify is better for like all the numbers and things like that, and Squarespace is better for the design aspect, I would say. So I found that useful on Shopify.
Yeah, we will get into those. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So if we go back to pricing for a second, there's kind of like a lot of different strategies you can use for pricing. So out of the ones on the screen, which of these do you use, and what's your strategy behind it? Why did you decide to price things that way?
Yeah, so I would say my pricing is probably for, let's talk about LON events first.
Yeah.
So mine is based on hourly and project based, I would say, for LON events, because I offer different packages. So if your company is offering different packages or different services, it's based on how many hours each service is going to take. And also you could say it's like each like project is different, requires different skills and how much time each project takes, things like that. So I would say LON events is more project based and hourly, but then Mariglow, I would say that is more custom pricing. But then it's also, well, it's kind of hard because for Mariglow, the pricing is based on the size of the sign. So it just depends on the size that you're getting. But I determine that based on how much it was costing for me to make the sign.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you kind of have like completely custom signs that the prices probably vary quite a bit based on what people do. But then don't you also offer rentals that would be more of like a set price?
Yep. So the rentals, they are all $195. So how I determined that was the shipping costs, how much it would cost for me to send it to them and send it back. And so that one was a little tricky because I'm sending them across like the whole country. So you had to determine how much you could charge to still be competitive with your customer, or I didn't mean customer, with your competitor. But then you also have to determine, so sometimes the sign will just go to like the next state over, but then other times they'll go to the East Coast. So you kind of have to determine how much it will cost, the most expensive price that it could be, to determine your price. Because if you look at just like the next state over, obviously that's not going to be as much. So you need to determine the highest cost that it could be and set your price based on that.
And that's because you're including shipping in your costs and not adding it on top of things, right? So can you talk a little bit about that strategy and why that's something that you do?
Yeah, so everything is free shipping for Mariglow. And I did that because I just feel like that it's like the Amazon mindset. Everyone wants like Prime, everyone wants free shipping. So then if you include your shipping in your cost when you're pricing your product, I think that's really attractive to your customers because they don't have to like be hit with an extra like $25 or something in the checkout. Like, oh my goodness, I have to pay another $25. I just think including the shipping in the cost is more beneficial.
Yeah, I think people do expect it. I think you're right. Let's see, anything else on pricing before we move to the next topic?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess for like Goldie, it's similar to Mariglow, where it's the cost of the like label rolls, the ink, and shipping is what's determining the price for that.
Yes, but it's lower priced items, right?
Yeah. So that's way lower priced items, but I do have higher margins for Goldie, which is interesting. So it depends on the project that you're selling. Some have higher margins and some don't. So, which is kind of nice because then I can sell, like if I sell not as many, the signs are priced more, I should say, and the stickers are cheaper. So I have to sell a higher quantity of stickers to match the price of, or to get the same revenue as my signs. So
yeah,
just different
models, which is why you're here, because you have like almost every model and you're doing them all at once, which is so cool. I did have one more question. So when you do like an hourly based project, especially when it's like about a wedding day, how do you make sure you stay within the hours of your package while still giving a good customer experience? Was that something that you had to learn over time, or like what are things you've learned in that space?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it kind of just took some time to figure out how much time each package would take, because it's hard when you're like first starting out. It's like, okay, so for example, full planning, I have no clue how much time full planning is going to take. So you kind of have to like do it once to figure out how many hours go into that package. It's more easy if it's like the day of, because it's like from 8 a.m. to midnight, something like that. So I would say just like the experience and like look back at the experience, keep track of like how long it takes for you to complete a task, and then set your price based on that. And I would say a big thing is looking at what your competitors are charging too, starting out. So then you're not charging like way under, because then you're kind of bringing the whole industry down, I would say, because then you're like charging this and then other customers are like, well, this person's charging way under. So you kind of want to be close to your competitors, but price based on what you can offer your customer.
Yeah, that's a good point. We always say like price cannot be your only value add to the industry, because anybody can lower their prices and then all of a sudden your advantage is gone. And like you said, it brings everybody down to a point where it's just not sustainable. So that's a great point. Like be competitors, but still kind of stay in that range so that you don't just have price as your only value.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we know what we're going to charge. Let's talk about where we go to sell that. So maybe we can walk through like each of your companies and where you started selling versus where you sell now, and if that's changed, what that looked like, why you chose to move. So I'll just kind of let you take the floor, but let's walk
Okay.
through one business at a time.
Yeah, let's do one at a time to keep everything straight. That sounds like a good idea. So we can first start with LON events. From the very beginning, I started on Squarespace because I thought that was that'd be the easiest way for me to create a website on my own, because their interface is very user friendly for design wise for website creation. So that's where I started LON events, and it's still on there. I've done a few brand refreshes because I like to make brands and things like that. And Squarespace has been awesome for that side of things. They also have like the commerce option, which is good for my event rentals. And they have a lot of good like plugins you can buy from different web developers that you can easily put into the website yourself. So I would say Squarespace is great for service-based, and they're also good for commerce. I would say it's not as powerful as Shopify for the commerce side, what I personally think, and what my experience has taught me. And I've never sold on any other platform for LON events, just because I don't really need to. I guess like Instagram, I post, but I don't use the like sales shop feature on Instagram for LON events. But for Mariglow, I first started it on Squarespace again because I had the experience from creating the website, and I knew it would be an easy way for me to create the website and get my products up as fast as possible. And I started first I was just trying to do it as cheap as possible, just bootstrapping Mariglow. And I first started for the custom signs, I just had a form that people would fill out the information that they needed, which I highly recommend everyone to, when they're first starting the business, just to get something out there. It doesn't have to be like your end like final product. But just like get it up as fast as possible. So that's why I had the form on Squarespace, so I could collect like their name, what they wanted their sign to say, like the size, color, the font they're wanting. And then I would end up going on my Illustrator and making the mock-up for every single inquiry that I got, sent it to them with the price, with like a custom link that they could like click on, and then they would add it to the cart. And it worked for me for about, I would say I did that for about like 8 to 9 months. But then I started just realizing I needed a new solution, because the time it took for every single potential customer they were at the time to make the mock-up and send them the link, that time was taking up my whole time. I had no time for like marketing things. I had no time for anything besides making mock-ups. So that's when I realized I needed a new solution. So I went to Upwork and found a developer who could make me a sign customizer, where they could just type in like the text that they wanted to sign, they see it, they can change the size, they can get the price all just on the website without me having to do anything with that. So that was the best decision I've ever made for Mariglow. And since then, it's been going great. My sales increased, like tripled from the sign customizer, which was awesome. But for that, we ended up having to switch everything to Shopify, just for the sign customizer. My web developer said it was better for like coding things. I don't know a lot about coding, but they said that Shopify would be better for that. So, which I'm glad we did, because I like Shopify's like the commerce side better. It's easier to track your orders, because I can like put in like requested, fulfilled, things like that. And I just like the interface better for the commerce side. It is harder to do design things yourself if you don't know like coding. So I would say that is a negative, but totally a positive for having the sign customizer. And also for Mariglow, I I've started using Instagram, like the shop. So I uploaded like my rental signs to that so you can like tag it when you post. I haven't seen like, I need to put more time into that, I think. I haven't seen a ton of sales from Instagram shop, but Instagram as itself is a great tool to get more customers, I'd say. And I did try selling Mariglow signs on Etsy, but that wasn't very successful. For whatever reason, it just didn't work. There might have been too much competition. It was too hard to get to like the top of the page without paying for it. So I just didn't see it worth it on Etsy because I was getting sales on my website anyways. So I ended up stopping that, especially because you had to charge more on Etsy because they do take a percentage. And I think those are all the ones for Mariglow. I'm looking at the list right now. And for obviously for Goldie, I only sell on Etsy. It's super easy. I just upload everything on there, and I have very minimal effort towards Goldie right now, at least. Eventually, when I have some more time, I'm gonna try to put a little more effort towards that. But right now, it's just my products are on Etsy, and people find them and add them to their cart, and I send them. So that's pretty much, I'm not wanting to make my own website for Goldie, but maybe eventually.
So when that was all great background, I have a lot of questions, but I'll start with the one you just talked about. So when do you know it's time to like move off of Etsy, for example? Like, why do you not feel like you're ready to yet? And what would it be that would like prompt you to then take that next step? Because I know we have a lot of people who have just like Etsy shops that are kind of crafts, and like help them understand when's the right time to take the next step.
So to make your own website, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, or whatever that looks like. Like if you're only on Etsy, but you want to upscale your business, what would be your sign that you're ready to do that? And what are ways to do that?
Yeah. So if you're only selling on Etsy, and that's like your main business, I would say creating a website would be a great way to take more control of your company, because you don't have Etsy to like fees to pay, seller fees, things like that. So creating your own website would be a great way. And I would say you would know you're ready to do that when you have a good customer base and good reviews on your Etsy shop. Because that you can use to, when you make your website, you can tell your past customers that here's this website, and you can also give them like a promo code. I've seen shops do. They've given me a promo code to like buy on their website rather than Etsy, just to try to grow their website more, and I think to avoid the seller fees.
Mm. Yeah. So what other things do you consider like when you're picking a platform? So like, for example, how do you know where your customers are shopping or where they would be looking for a product like yours?
Yeah. So what I do is I just like ask myself, where would I find that product? Where would I go to look for that product? So there's some things that you go to Etsy to find, like more handmade things, like personalized things. Would say a lot of people go to Etsy. So if you have like a personalized product or handmade product, I'd say Etsy is a great place for you. And maybe you don't even need a website if you're having success on it. But if you have more of or if, what am I trying to say here? So if like you go for like my signs, for example, yes, people go to Etsy for that, but they also, if you like Google LED neon signs, there's a lot of websites. So that's where I just wanted to make my own website for that, especially because I wasn't seeing success on Etsy. Your customers kind of tell you if it's working or not. If you're not getting sales on Etsy, maybe you need to try something different. So I would say listen to your customers, and like see see the past, the patterns of what your customers are doing and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and can you talk about Elwin a little bit? Because that's a service business that you've never had to pay marketing for, right? So can you talk about that a little bit and like how you foster those connections and recommendations that kind of keep your business going?
Yeah, so service-based is great because if your customer hopefully has a good experience with you, then they're going to tell their friends and family about the service from that you offered. So that's kind of been my experience. I first started for Eloin, I did like put a listing on the Knot and Wedding Wire. I forgot about that when I was talking to you, Megan. I did that when I first started, but I ended up, it was like a year contract, and I ended up taking that down because I wasn't seeing success from those bookings. So instead, I just reached out to venues via email. I'd go to visit them, talk in person, just like tell them the service that you offer, and then hopefully they'd put you in their like recommended vendor list, and it kind of just grows from there. So just offering your best service, and if your customer is happy, they'll tell other people. I've had a lot of customers come from recommendations from past clients, which is awesome.
That is super awesome. So where to sell isn't necessarily just your own. You can also like try, like you were very creative with thinking about who else is already in this industry that can help make this connection for me. And the same goes for products. You can wholesale your products to other people. Have you ever done that with any of yours? Or have you only sold exclusively?
Yeah, I've only sold to the customer. I've never done wholesale. I do have a few things in the works, not quite ready to go yet, but kind of take it to different markets. So I'm excited to share those things soon. But for Mariglow as well, I actually have never paid for. It's all been word of mouth for
Wow.
Mariglow.
That's so impressive.
Yeah, so this year it is. I do want to start paying for like some advertisements to experiment with that to obviously scale more. But so far I've been successful just word of mouth, email. My husband helps a lot with this too, emailing venues, sororities, just like thinking of people who could use your sign and just like reaching out, introducing yourself, and that goes a long way.
Yeah, we're kind of transitioning into sales here, which is awesome. So you have like been proactive with reaching out to people. How do you kind of figure out who you should reach out to? And again, maybe we could go through like the different businesses since they're the same industry, but maybe a little bit different.
Yeah.
And then how do you get their contact information? How do you know what to say? Like kind of walk us through that process.
Awesome. So all my businesses are somehow related to the wedding industry, just because that's been my experience. And I would say that's like my expertise. So a lot of them do have the same like customers, I would say, but I could first start with Eloin events. So just I reached out to venues, and because I just thought like who would be telling the customer about my business. So venues, that was a big thing. And also other vendors, and like you could say competitors, but at the same time, they're more like coworkers, I would say. So like with styled shoots, things like that are really big for both Eloin and Mariglow. So for Mariglow, I actually offer like my signs at a discounted rate for styled shoots, because if you don't know what a styled shoot is, it's when vendors get together and make like a mock design and take pictures. It's like a photo shoot essentially. So looking for opportunities for like free marketing, I would say, is really key. And so then when social media is a great thing, because if you connect with the right people and then they start to share your product with their product, and it kind of just grows from there. So I've had a lot of success with styled shoots if you're in the wedding industry, I highly recommend you doing those. And it's just also a great way to meet people. And for AmeriGlow, just think, and for any business, think who could use this product. And then just start making a list of the people that could use the product, and then just go to Google, search for, make a list, like as long as you can, find their emails. I've had a lot of success with just emailing people rather than calling, but it might depend on whatever industry you're in. And introduce yourself, just tell them that the product you're offering. And then I also like to include a promo code for in the email to kind of encourage the potential customer to try out the sign, purchase one for their business, and then they could tell customers about it as well. And they could also use the promo code. So
That's awesome. So your kind of give to them is this promo code that hopefully pushes them to pull the trigger and get something.
for sure. Yep.
Cool. And how do you like, okay, this is not a sales question, but it came up for me. So why did you decide to separate? Because it feels like Elowen, AmeriGlow could have been within Elowen. Like you could have just offered neon signs along with your services as like a rental that you have in your own catalog. So what pushed you to kind of separate those, and how did you know it was the right move to take a particular product and move it into a totally new business?
Yeah. I love that because so many people have asked me why I did it different companies. And the biggest reason was because I just wanted AmeriGlow to be its own brand. I wanted it to be just like product based. And I didn't want it to get kind of lost in the wedding planning and design. I just wanted it to be its own thing. And the first thing I actually thought of for the business was the name. And I just love the name of it.
It's a great name.
I just made up the name. I was like, I love this name. I'm just gonna roll with this. So I made a whole new brand for AmeriGlow. And I think that was the right decision for me personally, because I just like the separation between product and service for the two businesses. And it also allows AmeriGlow to grow into other areas as well. Because you can offer different like categories of signs. It's not just weddings. That's something that I'm going to start focusing on is non-wedding signs, just because you need to recognize that for like any business, that if it's a trend, that trend's going to pass. So you always need to think about like, what's the next thing? So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're such a forward thinker, like thinking through all these things. It's awesome. So do you have AmeriGlow products then that you like have in a catalog for Elowen as a rental things, or how does that kind of work? How do you promote them together and across your different brands?
Yeah, so because one of the reasons I started AmeriGlow also, I think I mentioned before, and if I didn't, I meant to mention it, but I had customers asking for neon signs. So that's kind of what pushed me to start AmeriGlow as well. And I have on my Elowen events website, I do have rental options, but I actually don't even have, that's a good point. I should put the AmeriGlow signs in my rentals, but I feel like most of my clients know that I also own AmeriGlow. So they just go to that website to order the neon sign things. And then I offer, again, a discount to my Elowen events clients, to buy a sign from AmeriGlow. So
I was going to ask if you did that. I figured you did. That's awesome.
Yep.
So how do you make sales feel natural? Like, especially for somebody who's introverted or maybe feels uncomfortable, like sales is a bad thing. How do you what are your tips for anybody who might feel that way?
I would say, I'm going to take a drink of water. My voice.
Yes.
I would say just be like proud of your business and what you're offering. And I think that communicates to your customer. If you're like proud of your business, and then you just want to like share it with people. And then also surrounding yourself with people that are like super supportive, because then they they like are the first ones to like share everything about your business. That's super important. But I think the more practice, then you get more comfortable doing it. And I think like the pitch competitions at Iowa State really taught me to be more confident speaking about my businesses, which is super awesome. Because before I like never would have thought of even like getting into entrepreneurship stuff until I started doing the pitch competitions and kind of just seeing that like, yeah, this is something that I could do.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. So if you're not at Iowa State, you can still share your idea with people, and it's a good exercise.
Yes, for sure. And don't be afraid to like share the idea if it's not like perfect yet. I always like to tell people like just get it out there. And then you can perfect it later on.
Yeah, that's good advice, because you can keep it to yourself for a long time thinking it's not quite ready, but you'll never feel like it's totally ready.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We got a question in chat. It said Ashley talked about profit or margins on sales, and that helps her keep an eye on proper pricing. Are there any other sales and pricing metrics you look at or you recommend founders look at? What might Shopify tell her that she might not have thought of that she can track easily? So like, are there metrics that have popped up in the back end that you were like, oh, yes, that's helpful, or other things that you look at besides margins?
Yeah, so I think a really helpful one for me is the sales per month. Because then I kind of, now that I've like been doing it for over a year, I can kind of look at the last year at this time, I was getting this much sales, and then like some months are slower, some months are obviously better. So that kind of helps determine maybe like when you should offer discounts. If it's like a slower time, that's a great time to offer a discount. So I really like to look at that. And also you can just see like the growth that you're making when you look at like your revenue compared to month.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I also, another one I like on Shopify is how many people visited your website every day. That's a really cool one, because then you can kind of see like what you're doing, like marketing wise, if that's working, or who you're reaching out, if that's working to drive traffic to your website.
Yeah. Can you see like cart drop rates? So people who add to cart but then don't finish purchasing?
Yep. And I love that you can like, I love the abandoned cart, like they can send an email.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. And then Shopify also says like your abandoned cart recovery is like in this percentage based on like all Shopify websites. So that's kind of cool to see, like comparing to other like businesses, how successful your like your cart recovery is. Just little things like that is pretty cool.
Yeah, it helps you like level set, see where you're at.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any idea what your like abandoned cart rate was before it was actually an add to cart? Like it was I would say more of a service type sales process where they submit this, you get back to them with a quote, and you kind of go back and forth. Do you have any idea like what your percentage was then versus when you just added it to your website and people were able to just do it on their own?
I've never calculated the exact number, but I'll give like a example. So I was like I'm trying to think back because it was like a year ago. I feel like a lot's happened since then, but I was like sending probably like 75 or more mock-ups every week.
Wow.
And that was just not sustainable. So, and I was not getting, when I added the customizer to the website, my sales went up like crazy. So I don't have the exact number, but I do know that the automation made everything better.
That's awesome for you and for the customer.
Yes. And so with pricing, another thing is too that I found that like it's easier for both my product and my service base to show the cost of what you're offering like straight up. because I've experienced both. Like with LON, I've like not shown my prices on the website for my packages, and then I have put them on. I've kind of gone back and forth, but I've ended up landing on just showing your price for your service, so then your customer knows what to expect when they reach out to you. I feel like the leads are more genuine because they know what you charge for your service.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that was on my mental list and I missed it. But I do think, especially for services, that's a big question. Like, do you leave it a mystery or not? And I would say as a consumer, I always prefer when I know kind of what I'm getting into. And I imagine, like you shared, that it saves a lot of time if you know going into it that they are comfortable with like the price range that you're within. So
Yeah.
do you tell them like exactly what these are, or do you give them kind of a range? Have you experimented with either?
So for all my packages, except for like one, if it's like a destination wedding, the price is set. So then they know exactly what I'm charging and what they get. I have a whole list of like everything they get to. So I've just found that just the leads are better. And like the rate that they'll book with you is way higher because they're not like shocked by the cost of it. And same thing with Mariglow. Before, when I didn't have the customizer, it was like a form. Some people would be like shocked that it cost this much, but with them being able to see it like right in front of them based on the size of the sign, then they know what they're getting. And I just think it's more positive experience for the customer.
Yeah, and they can like play with it and decide, okay, do I want bigger, smaller, based on
Yep.
pricing without being 10 emails back and forth with you.
Yes, for sure. It cuts down on the time.
Yeah, I always say like quality is better than quantity. And I feel like that's a great example of you really owning that, because you could just not put anything and maybe get 3 times as many leads, but they might not convert at a better rate than what you have right now. So just something to keep in mind when people are starting out and putting things out there or not putting things out there. So we're down to like under 10 minutes. So I just want to let everybody know, if you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat so we can address those. I have a couple more questions if we don't get any in the chat, but I did want to say, Ashley, thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge. You have such awesome experiences, and I really appreciate you coming today to share them.
Thank you. I hope I could share at least something to someone, help in some way.
I think so much. I learned a lot just listening, so I'm sure. One last shout out. Next week is our last Start Something for this series. We're going to talk to 4 different entrepreneurs in a variety of different business spaces. So we've got tech company, like a fitness type company, product shop. So we've got a good variety of people who are all going to share what they wish they knew before they started their business. And so if that interests you at all, you can just scan that QR code to register. And if you have questions, please add them in the chat. So far, I don't see any more. I see some thank yous, which I echo. While we're kind of waiting, I can ask what this last year has been crazy, especially for the wedding industry with COVID. So can you talk a little bit about how that has affected you and what's changed, or if there are things that changed and maybe you're going to keep that way?
Yeah, so it was definitely crazy. I remember like the week it all started happening where like people were trying to figure out if they need to postpone their wedding and things like that. And it was all a new area to navigate. And the biggest change I would say has been what you're including in your contract. And you kind of just have to have a policy in place ahead of time, which is something that we all learn, because it depends on the vendor, but some people like were charging like an extra fee to rebook. Like, how do you know like what you're gonna charge in a year? Like things like that. So I would say the biggest thing is like what was put in your contracts moving forward. Just having like a COVID policy, postponement policy. But the biggest like hurdle for me like I mentioned before, was I priced myself way too low to start. And that hurt me in the long run because I was having customers 2 years later who walked in that really low rate, which was not like the rate, it was like 4 times less than what I'm charging now. Is like how low it was. So that really taught me to price yourself what you're worth.
Yes, pricing is always hard,
Yes.
regardless. Yeah. Well, I haven't seen any more questions come in, so we can kind of end today's session. Ashley, thanks again. You're so impressive with everything you've done, and I always love hearing your story. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having me. The Papa John Center is super great resource, so I really encourage everyone to take advantage of everything they offer. And if anyone ever has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I would love to help in any way I can.
And if you need a neon sign, you know where to go. We have 2 and they're awesome.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Have a good rest of your week.
Bye.